Welcome back to Underrated Movies. I'm your guy, I'm your man, Mr. Alton Henry. Today, I'd like to talk to another underrated film you need to check out, you should check out, and shoot, if you'd like that to watch, have you checked it out already? And you've fallen behind. This film I'm going to recommend is a Tony Scott film, and personally, I believe it's one of my favorite Denzel movies. In fact, when those two collaborate, it's man, I miss those collaborations those two had. This film I'm going to recommend is Deja Vu, starring Denzel Washington, Paula Patton, Val Kilmer, Jim Caviezel. And the story is about a DEA agent who is trying to track down a killer who is responsible for the bombing of what was it, a ferry? And their lead is by using a device that can uh, go back in time or at least look into the past at least 4 days ago to try to pinpoint where their target was or who is the target by focusing on a one of the individuals who was supposedly used as some sort of a cover up for that was part of the ferry, but turns out that she was not. So they try to track down her history and possibly the person who was responsible. Where Denzel's character kind of falls in love with the woman and tries to figure out a way to theoretically find a way to prevent her death from happening. It's a time travel movie. This is a time traveling sci-fi action film, and I would say one that's kind of unlike. Well, I wouldn't say unlike, but it's a unique take. One that I think does handle, I think, the concept of time travel and then the way that they handle it in a realistic manner. At least for me, it feels that way in the film. Denzel Washington plays a great protagonist as the DA agent, and I think the character's name is Doug, who is a easygoing, cheerful uh, detective who finds out that his partner could have actually been involved in the bombing, well, who was one of the victims of the bombing. And he tries to not only figure out how his partner got murdered, but also trying to find the murderer of the girl that he's trying to use as a lead to capture the killer. But the film gets very interesting. It's a very entertaining film. It gets to the point where Denzel really kind of questions the concept of these scientists who are brought in from the DEA, not DEA, from the yeah DEA, or and actually, or I think they're the ATF police. I think who are brought in to use this device as like this it's like a surveillance time travel look through device, and they use it to try uh to surveil it to monitor the one of the victims that died in the ferry, but turns out that she wasn't, but was actually murdered. And they look into this person's life within the 4 days or so, or days that led up to the bombing, and you see the maybe fascination is the right word, or Denzel becomes fascinated with the girl, and he does grow attracted to her, but also knowing that this killer cruel, he chose to manipulate and doing whatever he can to use her to do whatever he wants to do with that boat, that ferry. He questions the concept of the machine and figures out that this machine could actually possibly go back in time by 4 days. And I actually there's quite a few scenes I really loved in this movie where he has a red pen and he like a little laser and he shoots the laser and the girl ends up seeing it in the surveillance time travel machine and then the scientists have a question end up seeing that and then they end up having to explain the concept of time travel within that film and within the machine that they're using. And it's also somewhat, I would say, shocking to of the nature of this machine, this time travel device that they use, where they would literally have to rewatch or watch the events that led up to this person's murder, and it's quite shocking to say the least. And there's another moment where they look into Denzel's partner and they literally see what happens to the partner uh, to find out that he was actually, spoiler, also murdered and added as a cover up victim, the ferry bombing. But it does get to the point where Denzel just cannot, for the life of him in the film, accept that they can't find a way to literally save this person, this girl. So he does use the machine in a risky way. And I actually like the idea that they did invoke some sort of thought of faith and Christianity into this movie. That spiritually, it could be signs that could be leading you to a greater purpose. And this film, he felt in the film that his purpose at that moment was to literally go back in time and save not only the girl but save the people who were tragically lost in that ferry accident. And he does so in a risky way, and it gets so exciting after that. Well, I wouldn't say like there's like action heavy, but it leads up to where it's like it's very exciting, and you kind of don't know. It's a race against time of Denzel trying to stop this guy, and it's very thrilling. And it's probably one of his best action movies that I've seen. And I remember my dad and I said I remember my dad said he took me to the theater to watch this, and I have no recollection at all. Looks like no, I don't. I'm positive he didn't. I'm sure he saw it or with my mom, but I have no recollections of ever seeing it at the theater. But I so when I saw it and it came on Stars, I saw it. This movie was pretty awesome. This is what I miss about Tony Scott. May he rest in peace. That I feel that a lot of today's films that tackle dramas in action like this film does, there's an emotional weight to it. I don't feel that a lot of these modern movies now do that. I feel like there's a little bit of like humor, but it's mostly written through just smart writing with characters just pretty much talking back to each other, making a joke that doesn't feel forced. It feels somewhat natural, but it doesn't take away from the emotional feel, the vibe of this movie. And Tony Scott, for the life of me, has always been great of delivering raw but very flawed characters, action heroes, and delivers some sort of just spiritual or some sort of drama into it that you literally feel and relate to these characters even more. You see their struggle, you see their desires, and you feel you want to be a part of that. Um, I feel like there's a lot of that missing in a lot of action movies these days, and they don't make them like they used to here. And I miss that. I miss some of these like grittier action movies that you're able to relate to these relatable characters who aren't necessarily heroes, but they jump into action to do the right thing, to feel like there's some sort of calling, they feel like there is some sort of calling that is brought upon them and they're forced to put in this situation, even though it might be uncomfortable and unsettling. they find the courage to do that because it's their drive. It's some sort of guide that's getting them to get through what they need to get through. And I love that Tony Scott puts that concept, and it's and on a spiritual level in these movies, in his action movies. He did it with, I don't remember he really did it in Enemy of the State, but I know he did it for sure in Domino. They touched it in Domino. They touched it in Man on Fire, and they definitely touch it in here. And I think maybe a little bit with his other action thriller remake, The Taking of Pelham 123. Now, this film is great action movie. This is Jim Caviezel, Sound Freedom as a bad guy, underrated actor here. He's also in the Thin Red Line movie. This film, it man, it's just great. Like man, I could tell you, revisiting this film, I forgot how exciting and of an adrenaline rush that this movie was. I can't recommend this movie enough, especially if you're looking for a good sci-fi film. I highly recommend. Like man, this movie, like I love the emotional depth of this movie. Like I highly recommend this film. Those who are looking for a good Denzel Washington movie, but also a pretty good action sci-fi film. Uh, Deja Vu. Have you seen it? Comment below. Let me know if you have, and let me know what is your favorite underrated movie.